Well, it was really a universal subject in my family because my father was just he was in love with cotton. And I never forget one time as a child, he came in with a blossom in his lapel. Men back in those days wore coats and ties all the time. And I was born in 1933. And I said, why that? Why you've got that on or something like that? And he said, that's the thing I love more than anything else. I remember him saying that. I also remember riding on the mule-drawn wagons to the gin. He had his own gin and didn't gin anybody's cotton but his own. And they would go to what they call the cotton pens or the cotton houses and load where they had picked it with pick sacks, of course, by hand. And they would put it in these cotton houses. I don't know whether you remember them or not. They were about 10 feet square and maybe 8 feet tall or something like that. And then when they got what they thought would be a bale, which is seed cotton, would fit into that 2 mule-drawn wagon, they would load it out and take it to the gin. And of course, some of his fields were 4 or 5 miles away from the gin. And I'd get up on top of that wagon and ride the wagon to the gin. That was fun when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, something like that. Well, one of the things that I noticed was the fact that he was really slow about adopting or adapting to new innovations. He was in his let's see, I came back in 1958, and 1958 he was 80 years old. He was 55 years old when I was born. I was one of 7 children, the only boy and the baby. So they kept trying until they got a boy. So I was spoiled rotten, and some folks say I still am, and they're probably right. But he was still sharecropping, and still had some mules when I came back. Tractors too, of course. And he loved hand-picked cotton. And the reason he loved it is because he got a premium for it. At that time, everybody else had gone to the machines. And he had machines too, or he hired people to custom pick with machines. But he really preferred the hand-picked cotton. And my brother-in-law was down here on Front Street and married to my oldest sister. You've got his sign in your museum, John A. Dupree and Company. You've got it on the wall down there. And that's who handled his crop. And because it was hand-picked, most of it was hand-picked, he got a real premium for it. Well, one thing that happened that I don't know that this has ever been written about was that the large landowners much preferred black labor over white labor. And that means that the black tenant farmers had farmed better land than the white tenant farmers. It means that the black tenant farmer was more prosperous because he made more cotton and he got a share than the white tenant farmer who was pushed out on maybe the buckshot land rather than the sandy loam land. And that was a big cause of the conflict between the whites and the blacks back in those days. People talk about the Delta. There's no aristocracy in the Delta. There's never any wealth that's over 3 generations. Well, maybe 4 now, but and of course the wealth was built on the land. But it's a very cosmopolitan place. It's unique that way too.